And I just wonder, since that research seemed to yield positive results, why not go more in that direction, more of a kind of naturalistic direction in terms of what these near-death experience counts are telling us? And maybe the flip side of that question is, why do you think these pictures will be successful? Then that people will, as you say, they should see that picture.
I don't know if they're going to be successful. I think you've slightly... no, I don't know if they will be successful or not. That's an important point to raise. As I said, I don't have a particular stance. It's possible that these experiences are simply illusory, and it's possible that they're real. Science hasn't got the answers yet, so we have to be open-minded. And right now, what we have is a setup that can at least, we hope, objectively determine an answer to this question. So that's the first point. The second point is that, obviously, again, this has to be, what people report has to be in the context of everything else that was happening to them. So again, I've interviewed hundreds of people who've had so-called out-of-body experiences, and they've described very accurate details of what happened to them. And sometimes when you speak to the physicians, they have confirmed what the patients have said. So again, if under those type of circumstances we have people who've seen everything accurately as far as we can determine, i.e. their accounts of what happened were correct, and they claimed that they were seeing things in the direction of where the image was, then in theory, if they are correctly out of body as they claim to be, again, you realize I'm not saying they are, but the patients claim they were out of body at the ceiling, then I see no reason why they shouldn't see the images. If, on the other hand, there's some other process going on, for example, that it was either an illusion, or it could just be that actually, perception is not quite as we think it is. Maybe they're able to perceive things, but it's not the way that we've imagined, or the way that they'd imagined they were perceiving things. Then they may not see the pictures. But these are the realms of the unknown right now. We don't have the answers, and I think, as I mentioned before, it needs the experiments to try to determine it. And as with any scientific experiment, probably one experiment will lead to fine-tuning of another experiment, and so on and so forth.
Will you, as part of the AWARE study, collect and publish those kind of accounts that you just mentioned? You said you do have accounts where people come back and provide information about their resuscitation that's later verified.
Of course.
So in what form will that, can you tell us probably in what form, and I know this is all subject to change as the research comes out, but how will the information from the study be published? In what form?
Well, the study will obviously be published in a scientific journal, in a medical journal, like with any research. That's the first thing. But we thought that certainly people's experiences cannot always be condensed into a 5 or 6 page scientific paper, and therefore I would personally like to have a catalog of people's experiences that we could then document either on a website or maybe as an addendum to the paper if the publishing journal will accept that. So people and often they do that, they have some more material on their website that maybe cannot go into the print version because of space issues, and then we could have that available for people to read. I'm also interested personally in trying to make sure that we can video document these things, so that, again, people can see them. Because I think that obviously they're important, they're significant, and one of the most important aspects is what the people say.
Great. Can you maybe share with us a little bit about the timetable for this project, where you're at, when some of this information will come out?
I'm hoping, again, with any research, like you said, things can change, but I'm hoping that we can at least release the first set of preliminary data within 12 to 18 months. That's my general hope. And by that stage, we should have had approximately, we should be around halfway through. We should have about 750 or so cardiac arrest survivors, and we should have a good idea of which way this thing is going. And I hope that we can at least release some of that information.
Great. And would you be willing to share at that point of 750 cardiac arrest survivors, any estimate in terms of how many near-death experience accounts you might wind up with?
Oh, that's precisely what I'm talking about. Is looking at what people have experienced, what the outcome has been, how many out-of-bodies we're having, etc. So that's what we hope to be able to publish, as I said, in the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, right, fair enough. I just wonder, do you think you're going to have 20 accounts, 50 accounts, 100 accounts?
Oh, do I know? I don't know. At this point, I don't know, but hopefully in a year or so, I will be able to answer that question for you.
Great. Well, it's certainly been a great pleasure. I really appreciate and respect you coming on and clearing up these. And I hope we have offered a more clear picture of what you're doing. It's obviously very exciting work. And, you're really to be commended for doing this work. It's brave, as you mentioned. It's not the kind of stuff that is not going to generate a lot of interest and criticism from every side you can imagine. So I'm sure you do have moments of where you question why you even got into all this stuff in the first place, right?
Yes, but it is a fascinating subject, and I think it's very important because not only will it have an impact on those that we bring back to life, like I explained, but also we're answering some of the last remaining age-old philosophical questions that haven't yet been answered by science. And I think it's important for science to try to answer some of these questions that affect all of us. What is the mind? What is consciousness? Why are we the way we are? Is there something else? And what happens when we die? And these things have not yet fitted into the scientific bill, but I think they are now, and I think that's important. So I hope my work can encourage others to also get involved and hopefully remain neutral and unbiased.
Absolutely. Do you have any thoughts on why this isn't more of or doesn't seem to be more of a pressing issue for science and medicine?
I think there are a number of reasons for that. First of all, one of the things I've noticed is that when you talk to some of the public, they have some perception that, it should just be done. Things should just be done. Experiments should just be done. Not realizing how much effort goes into just one single experiment. And you've highlighted a little bit of that and the difficulties we just talked about. But more importantly, that funding is so important. Money is needed. You have to hire staff and you have to have budgets. And of course, funding only comes from organizations that have that capability to provide that, and they're limited. And they generally will fund medical research that they perceive as being able to help people who are alive. And so one difficulty is if you're trying to tell people you're studying something that affects people when they die, then they may feel, well, it's very interesting, it's fascinating. But there's no real organization, there is no funding body. There's no funding body for that.
Sure.
The second problem has been that people, to some extent, we're all affected by pressure, in peer pressure and pressure around us. And the unfortunate perception out there has been that the study of death is something to do with religion and philosophy only. And I hope that I've managed to explain why I don't think that's correct. I think it should fall into the realms of science because we are resuscitating people who've died, and therefore we have to pay attention to what happens to the mind and consciousness too. And so I think that's been a negative perception on this subject, and therefore the combination of these two things, it's not like people are, it's not like you read a medical journal or read a newspaper and people are putting, adverts out saying, please come, we have, this huge amount of funding, we're waiting for
Right.
people to claim it, right? So who's going to do the research? People have careers, they have to, And so I hope that, and to be honest with you, in all the years that I've been doing this, even though I wrote a book and I've done numerous media presentations, even to this day, I don't see anyone coming out with real money to try to support this kind of work. So it's limited. It's limited what people can do. So I think you have to just wish us luck.
I do. I do, and I think anyone who's even remotely interested in these big picture questions in terms of science wishes you all the best of luck, and we'll certainly keep an eye on the AWARE project. Again, Dr. Parnia, thank you so much for joining me today on Skeptiko.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Dr. Sam Parnia for joining me today on Skeptiko. For more information about this show, be sure to visit the Skeptiko website at skeptiko.com. You'll also find links to all our previous shows, an email, Facebook link to me, all that kind of stuff, and a link to our forum. I have several interesting episodes of Skeptiko coming up in the near future, including a very interesting interview on the emergent church with Spencer Burke, and an interview with noted NDE researcher Dr. Pim van Lommel. So stay with us, much more to come. Till next time, bye for now.